News things.
What do you say?
Say it again, Rick.
I'm okay. When are we going on? 12 o'clock right now.
Yeah, we're doing it right now.
I need to meet y'all for a minute.
Come on. All right, everybody, and welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive safe, Dave, here in studio, and Sir Rick out there on assignment, representing as well. How you doing there, Sir Rick?
You know what? Drive safe. I couldn't be doing any better. It's good to be back in studio. Good to see your smiling face. And for those of you wondering what in the heck's on store for us today, aside from Daniel Pickett, freight scientist, smartest guy now in the room, since, usually it's me. Today we have Daniel Pickett, the new smartest guy, just for a little
Challenge.
bit, though, maybe 25 minutes. What else is in store? Let me tell you. The show comes on, as you know, at noon. At 11:59, Drive Safe Dave says, "Hey, Rick, what are we talking about today?"
I just wanted to know if you wanted to bring up the Cowboy win. I mean, there was a couple of things. We usually find a lot of things in freight news, but I thought it was prevalent and necessary to at least mention the Cowboy win last night over the dreaded Giants. I thought that was
I don't know
important.
about dreaded. I don't know about the word dreaded with the Giants. I don't know about that. But it was a victory. Not the most exciting game, but yet a victory's a victory. I'll take that all day. Hey, Drive Safe Dave, I will say this. I know we have Daniel. So Daniel's going to come to us from a Sonar Freightways perspective. We're going to dig into that. Good to see freight looking like it's moving north a little bit. Dave, some things we're going to talk about today. I'm curious to see what this storm does. Dave, we have a major storm expected to hit that Tampa area around Thursday morning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only is it going to hit that area, it's going to create a lot of havoc there. I can tell you that from all over the country, it's being reported that linemen and everybody's starting to head that way now because they anticipate not only surge floods, but they expect a lot of down power lines, a lot of loss of power, a lot of heavy flooding in that. And I'm talking about encompassing almost the entire state of Florida, across from the Panhandle all the way down over to the east side as well, and then moving in to that Georgia and moving up there and going to create a lot of problems. So it is the first major hurricane we're going to see. It is got a lot coming, and it is intensifying quickly out there as it's going to cross over Cuba today. I think it's doing it right now. It's going to go from an F3 up to an F4, they anticipate, and then crash into Florida with that intensity. So you're talking about maybe somebody was reporting 15-foot flood surges. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, pretty intense for sure. And, we led it with the Cowboys. So all those linemen moving down to Florida may not be a bad place for Jerry Jones to go down there and see if he can find another lineman or two.
Yeah, that was like nice pun, Sir Rick. I like it. I don't know. You actually came up with that one pretty good. But, it is going to affect shipping in that part of the country for a few days, without question. I mean, guys going in there, guys coming out of there, they're going to have some serious evacuations going on here over the next 24 to 48 hours before it hits on Thursday. I know that not everybody's going to evacuate. So, Rick, if it were you, would you be evacuating or would you be holding firm out there in Tampa at this moment?
I'd be gone. Yeah, I'm not quite the daredevil there. I would find reason to go elsewhere during that. And we do want to encourage each and every one of you out there
To leave.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had some background on my side. So.
Oh, no. Yeah, we want each and every one of you to get out of there
Yes.
and to leave and to avoid the impending disaster, because it's better safe than sorry. You can always return home later. And we know it's, as usual, it is going to disrupt all kinds of service and deliveries in that region. So We also,
Yeah, Dave. I got a question for you on that. I know behind the scenes, right? When we're not on camera, but since we're on it, we're going to talk about it anyway. Is that in the world of transportation, in the world of trucking, flatbed, reefer, drive-in, many people will go out there and say, you know what? I know these are bad things, but this economy, many times throughout the year, depends on these things. There's a hurricane season, and guess what? Normally we prep for these things. That means more water is going to ship out. That means, unfortunately, houses are going to get damaged, could get damaged. It now creates more product that's got to ship out, more of those flatbeds hauling flatbed freight, dry van hauling the dry van freight, and the reefer hauling that water's got to get in place. There's a lot of logistics when a storm like this that's coming through affects a place like it's going to hit right there in that Tampa area and north and south of Tampa. Dave, what are some of your thoughts on that? I mean, is that just sick of us here in the transportation? I mean, because we look at it and we know that it's going to create freight opportunities.
I don't think I look at it as in a positive way, because we're actually that freight is much needed in that region, and I look at it as a rescue. I look at it as an opportunity to bring in the needed materials to build the homes back, provide shelter, provide food. I mean, one of the greatest things that we've done of recent years is that FEMA is doing a much better job in its preparation for these disasters. And I think it's necessary that we look at it. I don't look at it as a negative. As long as we're saving lives and being safe, there's going to have to be rebuild done. I mean, and that's what you're talking about, right? You're talking about damaged facilities and bringing in freight and bringing in food and water and bringing in materials.
Yeah, you're talking about what you're getting ready to see here, Dave. I don't know. I don't necessarily take it as a negative. I'm kind of right with you on this, but what it is a reminder of, and Dave, one thing I think we should make sure that America hears, that our listeners hear, that we share this information, is when a storm happens like this, for once, you really do see the appreciation of what this trucking industry does. Dave, we bring in the building products, we bring in the food, the medical, everything, out there, the generators, the water, the food, clothing, it's going to come in off a truck. And Dave, I think it's a quick reminder back to this country, who these folks are in our industry, these truck drivers, and how powerful and how needed they are.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it's truly the heroes coming in, and they are going into areas where it's difficult because they don't have the resources. I mean, they're coming in on a truck. They got to be mindful of how they do it. When the electricity's out, fuel pumps aren't pumping. There aren't facilities. So they got to come in, do everything they can, and then turn around and get back out so that they can get fueled up again. It is a difficult scenario for these individuals going in there and doing that. And you know what? Everyone appreciates when you don't have power and all the generators show up, right, Rick? When the generators show up, everybody's like, woohoo, we got some air conditioning coming. Because usually what happens and what follows these storms is a very clear, bright, and sunny day, and it does get hot quick. And here it is, another one coming in to do that. And we want hospitals to be up and running. We want suppliers to be up and running, and we're going to do everything in this industry to make it work. We always have done that. It doesn't matter whatever disaster you've ever seen in history. It's always been the truck drivers bringing in the much needed materials, the shippers and the truck drivers, and trucking gets behind it 100%.
Hey, Dave, switch subjects real quick. Got up here to Nashville, Tennessee on Monday. Up for here for the McLeod User Conference. Just phenomenal again, Dave, when you think about all the technology that exists today and all the technology companies that are here today. Dave, a year ago, we did a show from the McLeod User Conference, and we're seeing a lot of the same folks that just began about a year and a half ago, getting a chance to reacquaint ourselves with them a little bit on new strategies, new technology, what McLeod's doing, and really partner now with a lot of folks is pretty incredible. Realizing they can't do it all, not trying to do it all, really focusing in on interfaces with some of these companies that have some spectacular data that can be shared within this platform. And Dave, what that does, it gives us, a trucking industry, a trucking company, a broker, whoever you are, a single platform to use and utilize all that data in one form instead of jumping all over the place using 2, 3, 8, 15 screens. It gives us that advantage. Dave, coming up next, we're going to talk to somebody that's very, very, very important to this technology side. Also, he can announce, I'll let him announce if there's anything up and coming with what they're doing on the sonar. Dave, sonar, big fan right here of the sonar guy. Dave, you even made fun of me in one of our commercials on sonar, acting like you knew what you were doing going inside of it. I'm drive safe, Dave. And yeah, Dave. But sonar is critical. The data in it's critical, Daniel, for a little while. Going back, I feel like at the beginning of sonars, towards the beginning of their era, with all of the data that's came out. Dave, we're going to go to a quick break. We're coming back with Daniel Pickett, freight data scientist extraordinaire, next on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
All right, we are back here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave here, along with Sir Rick on assignment. And we also have Daniel Pickett, Chief Data and Technology Officer at Sonar. There's a lot to say there, but as Rick says, it is Chief Scientist Extraordinaire going on at Sonar. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I'm doing great. I'm tickled to death to be here with you guys. Long time listener, first time caller. So
that's right. Well, guess what? You get a hat. So we'll make sure that you get a hat sent to you just for that. Right. So tell us a little bit really quick, Daniel. I know it says Chief Data Technology Officer over at Sonar. First of all, why don't you tell all the users, all the listeners today, what Sonar is?
Yeah, so Sonar really, was initially built as a platform to kind of expose other data that people weren't looking at. A lot of people are looking at kind of rate surveys and averages. And we said, there's a lot more interesting things out there that can tell you, before rates change direction and before, there's a shift in market capacity conditions. And so, we went out and started gathering information on kind of what's happening with the contract, electronically tendered loads, gathered what's happening on, maritime containers and at the ports and clearing customs. So a lot of these things that are upstream of, the rate that actually happens, when a spot load gets moved or when a new set of recontracting comes through, just to help people kind of be a few steps ahead of kind of day of booking and what they're seeing in rates.
Hey, Daniel, when it comes to that data, and I talk to people about data in general, you think about it, the data that we use today, you're not going back 2 decades, right? It's pretty new data. And talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. A lot of the data providers that we work with have never sold or distributed data before. And so, there's a pretty big effort. People say data is the new oil. Well, if that's the case, we see ourselves as a refiner who's taking that raw information, fresh out of the ground and kind of distilling it into a product that can, do some good and help you make smarter decisions in your transportation, whether you're on the shipper side, whether you're an intermediary or whether you're, a carrier, both enterprise down to the one man, one truck, single operation. So yeah, we're kind of going in and looking at things that are early indicators of changes in volume, supply and demand balance. rate conditions, diesel prices, all these things go into ultimately, everybody says, rate per mile, I live and die by rate per mile. But that rate per mile is kind of the sum of all these other variables that are happening. And so what we're trying to figure out is what are those other variables? How can we detect changes in those before you actually see that lifeblood of, the revenue to the trucking company change?
Yeah, and on that same thing, and right there, and Dave, sorry about that. So
Okay.
with Sonar, one thing that you try to do is try to show trends, today, because you're showing that, 3, 4, 5 year trends on a lot of this analysis.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about, say, the last couple of years, though, because, I think, in my opinion here, it's hard to go off historical trends right now because last year was the first year we've ever seen, a pandemic. And now it's the first year we've ever came out of a pandemic with a war going on. It's a lot of inflation. So a lot of weird trends. And it's hard to say what we are right now is what was happening last year because it's not the case. Was it the year before? Was it the year before that? How do you? What are some ways that you can use these trends to help them make sense to your business?
Yeah, so 2020 and 2021 absolutely broke all the historical models on what should happen with rates, what should happen with volumes. Like you said, we keep hoping we'll have a normal seasonality curve where the people who've been in this industry for 20 and 30 and 40 years say, well, there's a little summer peak and then there's the holiday peak, and that's how it goes. That's not what has happened, certainly in the 5 years that I've been studying data for the transportation markets. And so, how do you deal with that is really you kind of throw away seasonality-based models and you try to look at ultra high frequency data. And so instead of looking at, things that come out once a month or once a quarter or, potentially are 1 and 3 and 6 and 12-month lagged, government data sets, you really have to try and drive down to daily data because that's how fast the conditions are changing. Like you said, pandemic happened. We thought it would be an absolute disaster. Everybody thought this was going to be an economic disaster. And for anybody who's in the services industry, so, concerts and sporting venues and a lot of restaurants, it was a disaster. But for people in the physical goods, all this money couldn't be spent on services. Meanwhile, the government was handing out quite a bit of stimulus through a number of different programs targeting businesses and individuals. And so that resulted in just this boom in freight. And we tried to move 50% more than we had ever moved before. Well, no, who's surprised that we had congestion at ports and we had, record-setting rates and inability to even get a truck at really, really rich rates. So that was a surprise to everybody who was expecting a really deep recession. Coming out of that, as we unlock, we think, okay, maybe there'll be another boom. But people, aren't getting that stimulus money anymore. They're starting to spend it on services again. And that has kind of had the opposite effect of what was expected. Really, the only way to kind of, when we're calling it predict, but maybe we're not predicting so much as we're just getting data from yesterday and using that to say, okay, here are the current conditions. Let's make a decision based on what we know today with the most up-to-date information that's available.
Daniel, when you talk about that, I think it's really, really excellent because even for the simple guys, the unsmartest guy in the room, I think Sonar allows us to identify that stuff when it's presented in that light. You don't have to have a whole team of people to try to understand that the data you're giving it. You've put it in pretty easy to read platforms that discussing these things, but be it fuel, be it rates and stuff like that, so that you can see these things. And you can also, if you're just the 1 truck guy or the 2 truck guy or the 5 truck fleet, you can actually make informed, educated decisions on what your next business model might need to be or how it might need to change effective today going into next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you mentioned the small guy. It's especially important for them. The 1,000+ truck carriers of the world, they have really robust teams. We work with them. They have huge teams of smart people that are looking at their own data, plus some of our data, other data sources as well. And so it's their goal is to cherry pick all the best freight, all the best routes, all the best rates before the little guy ever gets a look at them. But really by paying attention to what happened yesterday, what's happening today in terms of volume, in terms of rates, in terms of diesel, then that can let you play with the guys in the big leagues for sure. And that's important if you're going to be a smaller carrier. Who there are huge advantages being a smaller carrier. In many cases, that they can be some of the safest fleets out there. They can be some of the most the ones that don't necessarily have the time pressure, and the ones that may have more experienced drivers. So there's some great things about small fleets, but it's certainly to their advantage to pay attention to this high frequency data and what are market conditions, and how do you put together those profitable trips. I mean, they got squeezed harder than anybody as volumes were coming down, rates started coming down, and then rates really sort of plateaued maybe earlier this summer. But you mentioned the war earlier. Diesel was ticking up, and that just eats away at profitability. And they don't have these massive fuel purchase programs with the truck stops and massive fuel hedging programs. And important that they pay attention to all the information at their disposal.
Hey, Daniel, y'all measure so many things out there at Sonar. I mean, from freight to fuel to ships to dry. I mean, you name it, y'all measure it out there on the Sonar side. What are some of your favorite, 2 or 3 tools that you use? And it kind of explain the importance of those tools to our listeners.
Yeah. So in many ways, our first hit was our best one. So the tender rejection index is still 5 years later one of the fastest to react to changing market conditions. It told us what was happening at the beginning of the pandemic. It told us what was happening back when the ELD hard mandate happened, and we thought, oh my God, there's going to be a capacity crunch. Nobody's going to get a truck, and it turned out to not be that bad for a little while. And so it's one of our originals. It's still one of the best, one of the fastest reacting. I also think that one of our newer data sets is the maritime data. We call it Container Atlas. And so it's ocean booking data coming out of China. That's if you're in trucking, that data is probably 2 to 6 weeks before you're going to see it hit your market. But you need to be paying attention to that because when that takes a dive like it did back in March, and FreightWaves was warning everybody, we're in for softening. That can tell you maybe it's not time to go sign up for a new truck and get a big payment when, we have equipment prices. Trucks and trailers are 3 times what they cost, 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. Those kind of things can tell you, is it time to hunker down? Is it time to be aggressive? And so, combining both the what should I do today, where should I, what market should I try to catch a load to, with longer term capital decisions is kind of how you become one of the smarter data driven fleets out there.
Yeah, I'm going to, I like what you're saying on that. A question I have, so let's talk about the containers. I remember when that report came out, and boy, there was a lot of fringe that FreightWaves and Sonar lost, right? Because sometimes, people don't want to believe the numbers on that. A follow-up question to that, though, is do we have the data today that says how much freight, if we have taken back, resourced that freight from China to, say, Mexico, somewhere else, to the United States, to Central America, do we know what that difference is? I mean, do we know how much freight has been taken away from China, now moved to Mexico, to kind of help us correlate, are we in a freight slowdown, or is it just coming from another part of the country, part of the world?
Certainly. So you absolutely do see shifting manufacturing to Mexico. Automotive is one of the big ones who has always had a large footprint in Mexico, mm-hmm. but they were hurt especially acutely by the chip shortage coming out of China. So they're one of the ones that are keenly interested in getting as much closer to the end market as they can. We see a lot of clothing and even some electronics going to Vietnam. And some of that's capacity driven. Some of that's also tariff driven. The new iPhone recently announced, manufactured in India. So, all over the world, we see shippers, we see manufacturers looking for more diversity. I think the pandemic taught them that maybe they had too many of their eggs in one basket. So yeah, and you absolutely see that in container data. And you even see that in some of the changes over time in trucking volume and even rates. Port of LA Long Beach is the bread and butter. If it's going from China, it's probably going to LA Long Beach. Although we do see more going through the canal and coming to East Coast ports now, because that line of ships was over 100 at one time, and you had no kind of certainty on when it would get to dock if you weren't if we weren't reserving whole terminals. And so we definitely saw some alternative port use, but we are seeing shifts in volume, and what lanes used to be the biggest and the highest paying, that's slowly shifting for sure.
So I know we got a few minutes left in here, and so here's one that I've been looking at for really probably really close, probably the last, say, 6 months, and it's becoming I feel like it's becoming a concern, but maybe I don't understand it completely. So I'm going to ask you, Dan, put you on the spot here. The van contract, the initial reporting of average base rate per mile. It's the then you have the final one, right? The VCR, right. PMF, whatever the final one. Yep. You have the initial one, and I'm going to explain it. You just tell me if I'm just way off on this. So the initial one to me would be, I compare it to, say, an RFP that's going out maybe first round. Those are the bids that are going back that we're looking at. We're seeing the rates, and then the final would be, this is what we kind of agreed to. So the initial tends to be up here, right? The carriers are a little higher at the beginning. The final means this is what we agreed to between the shipper and the carrier. And if that's the case, I've seen that initial bid just fall down the ceiling, meaning that the carriers don't feel that comfort level that they did earlier. And I'm just talking 6 months ago when they were saying 288, 290 a mile, now down to that 265, 269 mark on the initial one, which tells me rates are going to come down a little bit more, because once we agree to that final contract, we're all going to typically go under the initial. The only time it seemed to really be difference was last year during the pandemic, when we rated something and it still wasn't enough and we had to go even higher. Am I right? Am I wrong?
The way we calculate it is a little bit different than what you said, but the end meaning, you're pretty much right on. So what we're really doing there is contract data kind of flows in over a cycle that large terms are 15 days, some are 30, 45, 60, 90. And so as we get those contract reports, they trickle in, I would say some trickle in a week after delivery, some trickle in 60 days after delivery. And so, that initial is when we have a little more than 2 weeks of data, we go ahead and put out, here's what we've seen so far in the earliest reporters of current contract rate movements. And then the final is after 45 or 60 days, I can't remember which it is now, when we've received most of the reports we're going to see on kind of contract price. And so you're certainly right that the initial is going to move faster than the final because it is on less of a lag. It's a less complete data set. It's a smaller number of reports, but certainly, these things, they do tend to be very correlated on a lag.
So as those go down, when we see these things go down or up, what effect does that have on the spot market pricing, or is there a correlation between the two?
I would say that the spot tends to lead contract, and what happens there is, as the spot market falls apart, well, brokers decide, hey, I can take, I might lose a little margin, but I can take some volume if I go in and undercut these guys on old contract rates. And so they go in and either sign a contract or say, hey, send some more of your freight to spot, and I can save you quite a bit of money. And I mean, if you want to look like a genius as a director of transportation at a shipper, all you've got to do is pay attention to spot versus contract. And if your budget is set on contract and you can take advantage of a lower spot market, without causing yourself quality of service problems, then you can be a hero to your CFO. And that's what I think you see happening. So as spot trickles down, savvy both asset-backed carriers and brokers will start to kind of undercut the existing contract. Savvy directors of transportation. Remember, we used to be a 1-year contract cycle, and now it's the mini bid. And so, we see bids going out for 3-month terms, 6-month terms, and and so they'll launch. There's mini bids launching right now. I talked to a large shipper and 3PL yesterday, and they're launching another round of mini bids because they said, hey, you know what? We can make this fourth quarter a little bit more profitable for us because it's time to take that transportation cost down and take that pressure off of inflation off of us, the company. Don't know how long it'll be before the consumer feels that relief, but hopefully soon.
One more thing here, Dave Dover. Sorry, you got to bear with me for a second. I don't get Daniel to myself very often, but here we go. So the OTVI, the outbound tender volume, we hear it. We hear, volumes down, volumes down, volumes down. Well, if you go back to your data, I'm going to say volume's only down compared to last year. It's still 20% higher than it's really ever been before. At close to that 12,200 mark, I think is where we start off today, as opposed to about 10,000 every other year.
Sure.
So volume doesn't seem to be down, right? I mean, it's higher than it's ever been. Rates, even on the spot market side, rates appear to be as high as we've seen them. Unfortunately, you have that fuel that's just killing that spot market rate. Right. I mean, driving that profitability down significantly. Right. It's not a rate problem. I don't even think it's a freight problem right now. There is freight out there. It's just not last year.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. But also remember, when you go from 80 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour, it feels like everything's going to hit the front windshield. And so that's what I think we're feeling right now. Couple that with, even though the volume's 20% higher, over the last 2.5 years, we saw a record number of new registrations for drivers. And additionally, they were buying trucks and trailers at record high prices. The price of a used 3-year-old used truck is finally showing some relief, but what was triple what it was pre-pandemic. And so you have a significant number of new carriers who have an extremely high cost basis relative to the people who bought their equipment pre-pandemic. And so there are more loads, but there's more competition for those loads on the carrier side. And that's why you see so much pressure on those rates. You're right that diesel is supporting those rates because got to put gas in the truck. But certainly profitability is still challenging, but because of those new entrants with really high cost basis.
All right. Drive safe, Dave.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we also highlight, how do you get this data? We've been talking about it. We've been talking about it on FreightWaves. I want to make sure everybody that's here knows how to go get it, knows where to pick this up. Let the secret out, Daniel. We want to know what is the secret. Yeah.
If you go to freightwaves.com, you cannot miss us talking about Sonar and how to get on that platform. There's a form that you fill out, and one of our account execs will contact you and figure out what's your use case of all the products and data sets we have, which ones are right for you. But freightwaves.com, and you can't miss it. The guys have put my email address right down here. If you email me, I'll help you get set up as well. And we'd love to talk to you because we really have helped a number of fleets. The customer anecdotes at this point are too many to mention, and you've got certainly smart resources out there outside the FreightWave sphere, like the guys here at BCB that are taking that data and kind of interpreting it and evangelizing it too. So always happy to talk to people about data.
Thank you, Daniel, and I appreciate that. Hey, before you get out of here, I think it's important that we ask you to do what we ask all our guests to do. We ask that you state your name, who you're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. I'm Daniel Pickett. I'm with FreightWaves Sonar, and you're riding with BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you, buddy.
All right. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, Sir Rick. We have reaffirmed.
I'm telling you, man. I'm going to say a quick little plug for those folks as well, because there's so much data out there, and when you get this Sonar thing, make sure you're going to allow yourself to listen, understand it. You're going to look at this. You're going to want to dive into everything. You're going to have to really shrink it down and focus on, what you're doing. It tells a story, Dave, I think, to brokers on what's going on in their market today. When you see lots of volume coming out of a certain part of a city, Dave, out of the state, and you can see what freight's being rejected, it does help you understand what could possibly be going on today in that market. It's so critical for brokers, for truckers to understand what's happening today. Dave, we talk to other truck drivers out there, and you don't want to necessarily listen to what the other truckers are saying in the truck stop. You'd like to have somebody that's also giving you the information, the real data, to kind of guide you, the smaller truck company, the larger truck company, a major shipper out there. Let me tell you, this information that we showed, that we share with you, and what they'll tell you is the same thing. This information is for everybody. Use it, understand it, and help it make you explain to yourself or to your boss what's happening in this crazy, crazy market we're in.
Yeah, the information is there to be utilized. It's being used by the big guys already, and it should be, and it can be used by anybody that just goes out there and gets it, Sir Rick. All right, well, we come back.
Another thing, hold on, we're not going anywhere yet. I meant to tell Daniel that too, because we all had a chance to talk before the show, and I had to get a text from, and producer, I know you're there right now. I had to get a text from one of our valued listeners on my phone that said, "Hey, dude, make up your bed."
We've been telling you that for years, Sir Rick. I don't know.
Made it. Hey, Rebecca, bed has been made. At least covered on that.
I can't wait to tell Kendra that you actually made a bed.
You know what? I looked for I actually took the covers. I looked at the directions to see if it told you how to do it and everything. So I just kind of said, I figured it out here. Went to YouTube, and you can find anything on YouTube.
Right.
Bed's been made. Drive safe, Dave. Hey, I appreciate it. I know we're coming back up. We got Buckle Up Bob coming up next. Don't forget it, Dave. It's Tuesday. What happens on Tuesday?
It is Tuesday. It is Trucking Tuesday here, in which we also celebrate, along with Wreaths Across America here on Tuesday, the safety message as we go each and every Tuesday. So stay tuned as we work together in partnership with them to bring you the safety message today.
The biggest fear Gold Star families have, that their child will be forgotten.
Because everyone has a story. There's a story behind every name that you see here.
It's important to teach not just kids, but everybody.
We need to never forget freedom wasn't free.
Their sacrifice is not just our past, it's our future.
Join the mission to remember, honor, and teach. Visit wreathsacrossamerica.org.
All right, we're back here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave here, along with Double Check Dale, and we are bringing the safety message today. What are we talking a little bit about today?
Let's talk some more about winter driving, but specifically chains and chain laws and how they affect, and what are chains, because there are different styles of chains. So let's delve into that a little bit more today, Dave, because there are
some of my favorite things to talk about are what'll slap on a truck. So that's, I'm just saying, we can fit, if it'll fit on a truck, Drive Safe Dave sure likes to talk about it.
The trucking accessories, those dreaded tire chains.
Absolutely, and you know what? I have slung iron, and I do not wish to ever do it again. So go ahead.
Tire chains, and you said slung iron, and you don't wish to do it mostly because they're heavy. And so one of the alternatives is there's something called tire cables. They are not legal in a lot of states where chains are required. Yes, they work, but if you're in Colorado and they have the chain up law in effect, cables are not legal there. So you have to be very aware of that. Other things that are legal, tire socks. That's a newer invention, and so you much lighter, aren't they, Dave?
They are about 45 pounds lighter per set. And they usually come in a package of 1 or 2, and either for the single or the double. And what they'll allow you to do is they'll allow you to store and throw them in the side box at 5 pounds instead of 50 pounds like the bag is of chains that you have to put in there or stack up. And as you know, if you go out west, when you have to have even multiple sets of chains, you know, it's just going to add to it. But the tire socks are also, they're temporary. They're not long lasting like the tire chains are. But they do allow you to maintain the requirement under the law when you traverse certain areas of the country. You actually have them on board in which you can be legal by having them in the vehicle. We always recommend here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation, that you do not enter into a dangerous zone in which you need to have chains. We ask that you wait until it clears. Chains and other implementations to allow for traction should be utilized to get out of danger, not head into danger. We always recommend that here. And when we talk about chains, you know, most people don't realize that chains are good for gaining traction, but rarely do people also know that they don't really help you in a skid.
Not so much. They throw some nice sparks once in a while.
Yeah. But they'll keep you from skidding. They'll allow for traction. They'll help you in the long run. But when you lock up the brakes, it's too late. And you can slide and slip and slide right off of the hill. So you got to be really, really careful. And most of the time, chains are required in areas with steep inclines, whether they are steep grades. Rarely do you see them, do they throw up chains so that you can go across the flat desert. They just don't do that. They do them on steep grades for a reason, to increase traction. Yeah. And if you are ready and willing and able to get out there in the snow and the cold and put them on and face the unknown and do what you got to do, we hope that you drive slow, safe, and steady out there 100% of the time.
That we do. And that is today's segment. And like Dave said, you know, the biggest thing is to get you out of trouble instead of driving into trouble with them on. So.
100% agree. All righty. We've got some videos, don't we?
We do.
Don't we have some videos to share and show?
Videos. Oh, look at this one. Following too close in the nighttime. You know, reduced visibility, so we want to make sure we're backing off. We want to give ourselves, we want to have that big picture. We want to be able to see what's going on. When we're following this close, you know, in the nighttime, our visibility is just limited to back off.
Yeah, and you know what? You're just, you can't see around. I can't see what's coming up.
Yeah, lanes are shifting here.
Big picture gone.
Yeah.
All right, next video.
Another one where, you know, we're in nighttime, we're about less than a second away from them, just following too close, you know, the speed is right at the maximum thing. Hey, adjust your speed, adjust your distance for your surroundings, the big picture. And again, not leaving ourselves an out. We're probably over the speed limit on this one. We have some curves coming up. Just know where to go if something bad happens in front of you, Dave.
Yeah, look, we're trying to show you and show you film and exercise your knowledge in these type. You're going to encounter these each and every day. You're going to get into these situations. What we're asking you to do is to recognize them by showing the video here. We're hoping to let you see what we see and let you see on video what's going. Look, you get real-time image. You're behind the wheel, you get good visual real-time image. What we're hoping to show you in this is that it is too close and that you do something about it in this scenario and recognize it sooner, recognize it for what it is, and find a way to get out of this dangerous environment, because only bad things can really happen if something goes wrong.
So it's like the professional watching the tapes of the game.
100%.
Even though they played it real time live, they know what happened there. Until they step back and look at it, they don't see the big picture, everything that went with it.
Absolutely. The professionals each and every time, even the very best, watch video of themselves out there to improve what they do and how they do it every day. Let's go to the next video.
You know, if you don't trust the camera in this one, you're too close, okay? Truck and trailer's what, about 70 foot long. We're going 70 miles an hour, about 100 foot per second. We're too close.
We are too close.
You know, there's a measurement for you right there.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be really, really careful here. You know, you're less than a length of a trailer away, less than the length of a truck away from the vehicle in front of you. Even though they're bobtail, You're trapped here. Where are you going?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And if something, you got to be prepared for even the worst case scenario. You're not going anywhere. Obviously, in this entire length of time, I don't think they've changed position this entire video. Just be mindful of what you see, what you're doing out there, and understand the position you're in. All right, next video.
Next one is a rolling stop. So we still have a 0-day rolling stop.
Yeah.
But not only is it a rolling stop, it's the exact same location as the one from yesterday.
Yep.
Different
Different truck, same location. Stop means stop. It was there yesterday. It meant stop yesterday. It means stop today.
Yeah, identify these situations. Make sure you come to a complete stop. The law is the law. We try to represent signs here. We try to bring you the information necessary so that you can be successful out there. And let's be honest. I don't care that nobody's coming. The law says you must stop at a stop sign. Find a way to follow the rules of the road and make no allowances or excuses for disregarding the law of the road.
Yeah, I don't care that I didn't see anybody, but I didn't give myself a very good chance to see anybody because I didn't stop and get that good look.
Yep, 100%. All right.
And again, we're going to roll through another stop sign. Folks, they don't put them up just because they feel like putting a stop sign. I mean, it's not, they're not arbitrary.
It was close. I was close. I almost stopped. No, but you didn't.
That's right.
Let's identify those signs out there. Let's follow the signs, just like Drive Safe Dave wears every day.
Yep.
A sign.
Like the do not enter sign.
Yeah, don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't go there. All right, everybody. Hey, we hope that you have a wonderful and safe day, a fantastic day, and a day in which you can be helpful to somebody else out there, no matter what you're doing. Be careful. And you know what? Our prayers go out to those in the direct path of the hurricane this week.
Oh.
It's coming, guys.
Yep,
Let's get prepared. Do everything you can. If you can, get out of harm's way. Leave the area. Find a way to evacuate today. Get out there on the road. Take what you need and get away. You can always come back. I'd rather be safe than sorry. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow at noon on BCB Live.
The safest station in the nation.
He knows it every time.
Peace out.